Bates Motel Season 3, Episode 3, Persuasion. Now, there are so many elements to this episode that make it such an amazing one. Not only for this season, but honestly for the series. I think this is one of my favorite episodes, and for whatever reason, it's always really hard to pull episodes out of this show from season to season because it seems like it's um, so much of a longer time between seasons. I don't know why it was so hard for me to get that out, but this was definitely a great episode this season. And I know it's only the third one, and because I'm so far behind, I'm gonna watch the fourth one right after this because I cannot wait to see what's gonna happen. But I don't think they've had an episode where they've introduced so much stuff in one episode that basically is just like, here's a bunch of plot lines that may or may not end up existing this season. And I'm incredibly excited. They had the new sheriff who kind of, he has like a couple of different facets to him. It's like, one, he's like sort of the smart, pseudo cocky type of person where it's like, I just flashed my credentials and that let me walk right in here. You might want to think about upping your security. And then he's like, I used to be a sheriff, so he has the actual workforce merit to kind of run for sheriff in town. And then it's like, my dad has a lot of friends up here, and it's like there's so many different elements to his character. It's like, and he was even called out on it, like, so your daddy's friends thought you should probably run for sheriff. And like, I like his character, like the little bit that we got. Of course, I can't root for him because it's like I can't root against the main characters despite some of their lesser qualities, especially in Norman's case and Norma's case, I think. Um, but it was just cool to get this character. It's like, okay, they initially introduced it earlier in the episode, which was another great plot point with meeting the guy who's basically the head of the Arcanum Club, or at least the parties that are thrown there, like the crazy parties. And he was a fairly serious guy. It's like, he shows up 30 minutes late to the meeting. He kind of threatens the sheriff. He's like, why don't we play a little game called, like, which is worse? And, he has like this sort of, once again, like a really cocky attitude where it's like, I've been doing this illegal stuff for who knows how long. And you kind of just screwed up and got all the weed burned down and basically destroyed the entire city, which we obviously know from, I think every episode so far has kind of touched on that at least at one point in the episode. Maybe not in the second one, second episode this season, but the first episode did, and this episode definitely did in two separate occasions. And it's just like, he's like, I can kind of do whatever I want. I've been throwing these parties with, figureheads from the entire town. You've screwed up and no one really gives a crap about you. You're definitely on your way out. If I happen to know something about this case, then, I'll just keep that to myself. And it was just like an intense little moment. So I don't know if we're going to get to see more of that guy, which I hope we do, because he seems like yet another antagonist for the sheriff, who's kind of gone from antagonist to protagonist, or at least like a side protagonist in the series. So, he's got like two people kind of coming at him. One guy kind of runs the clubs, which he does attend, or the parties, which he does attend, and then the other guy is definitely gunning for his job. He has the merit. He has possibly, the right kind of people behind him to, get enough ads out there and enough showmanship. Like, hey, I know this guy, I know that guy. This is my dad. Whoever's dad may end up being if we end up seeing him. But all that stuff I thought was really cool. And then, of course, we have everything between Norma and Norman in this episode with the investigation where it's like, what's going to happen? Of course, it seemed like he killed yet another person, yet another woman, really. And we find out that it's not her, but she is tied to their guest. I believe her name was Anna. And it's like, it's not her in the beginning. And I was thinking, like, maybe even before they showed her dead body, I was like, maybe they're going to flip it up this time. Like, maybe she'll actually be alive. And then I was like, when they actually showed the body, I was like, well, dang, he just screwed up again. And then it's like, no, this was a random dead body, which may or may not play an important role. Because these people, everyone is always doing something illegal in this town. If it's not drugs, now we've got this new facet where now that the drugs have been taken out, we get to see this other side of things, which is um, a bit more higher up. It's not like, oh, here's, a bunch of weed plants and dealers and stuff. It's like, here's this crazy black tie party where you have to have an invitation as well as a password. There are excessively high end hookers there, and most likely drugs and things like that, hardcore drugs probably. And so we have like this whole other side of the community now, which doesn't exactly boost the community because they aren't really selling anything. But we have this now, and then apparently whatever's going on where this woman, she finally comes back by the end of the episode. Norman had some great moments, which I'll get to, but she comes back at the end of this episode. She is actually alive, and of course it's like, oh, she comes back. I thought it was gonna be all right. She's alive. She was just like on an insane bender, and they're gonna be like, it would have been kind of funny if she came back. And I was thinking, what if she just got dropped off? I was like, where the F is my car? And that's kind of how the episode ended. I thought that would have been funny. And then it just threw me for a loop, like, alright, she lived. That was a twist that I was kind of hoping for. And then she comes out, she's been shot, and then she's like, use this to help yourself and your son. And it's a freaking little thumb drive. And I was like, okay, so I figured she had to be giving her a bunch of money. Like, I made this money, these are like the last two people I bonded with. Use this, help yourself or whatever. And then it turns out to be this little flash drive. And I don't know what to think about that. Like, I have to assume it's something based on the highway. Like, she has some crazy information. And I believe I mentioned this maybe in the last review that I did. But, like, what if there is some random information that comes up and that's how they stop the highway? Like, maybe it's some random deposit of this or that, and if they do this, it'll blow up or something. But whatever this information is, it's going to be a big deal for the series. And that was definitely the greatest twist at the end of this episode. It was like, here's this woman who wasn't killed, great twist, and then she comes back and she's been shot. She's been gone for 2 or 3 days, I believe, in the timeline of the episodes. She's been gone for about 2 or 3 days, and then she just randomly comes back, and she's been shot. So obviously, she's involved with someone, possibly, one of two or both of the characters that were introduced in this episode. And so she's been shot, she dies, and it's like, use this to protect yourself, and it's information, which, you can watch a million different shows, and especially like anything revolving around politics or spies and all that crap. It's like information is the deadliest weapon, and that's what they're kind of doing for Bates Motel, and it's thrown in the hands of Norma Bates. Who knows how the heck that's gonna play out? But I'm definitely excited. It was a great way to end the episode where it was just like, all right, she's giving her a bunch of money. The question still would have come up like, who the heck shot her? And then it's just like, expanded like exponentially when it's like, I'm giving you this thumb drive to save, help yourself and your son. Whatever it is has to be huge. So I can't wait to see how all this stuff plays out, and who she goes to and who tries to come after her and stuff like that is going to be very exciting, because of course the information is going to be, well, we shot her, she obviously had the thumb drive, and this is where she died. Either she threw it, along the way, she just, tossed this little thumb drive, or one of these three people have, and that would be Norma, Norman, or Emma, because obviously she works there too. So I can't wait to see how that stuff plays out. It's definitely going to be a great episode. I'm going to watch it as soon as I finish this review. But I loved it. We got to see Norman. I think we've only had one other episode, and I believe it was last season, where Norman actually stood up to his mother. And he did it twice in this episode. Like, he stood up to her when he was talking to the sheriff, and it's like, there's no us, there's no we. He's asking me questions, and so he's answering questions. He's really confident and stuff, and he's saying like, I didn't do this, I don't know this, or I don't know that. And then of course, towards the end of the episode, when Emma's trying to talk to him, he kind of loses it. He's basically being accused by his mother over and over again, and it kind of makes him believe it. And he gets to the point where he hallucinates her again, which I thought was great, because we haven't really seen that, and it's very different from earlier this season when he hallucinated the teacher. And it's because, like, his mother, when he hallucinates her, she convinces him to do things. Like, he even mentioned, like, you said that you killed her, and she's like, I did. And I thought she would say, like, it's because I'm you, but I think that would have been a bit too straightforward, and he would have, realized he was insane. But it was really cool. Like, he almost drowns himself just trying to remember this stuff, and Norma going like commando on the door, like just kicking it open, and saving them and stuff. I thought that was actually kind of funny to me. It just, it didn't take me out of it. It was just funny. It was like, of all the series that we've had so far, all the episodes and everything that's happened, this is probably, it's probably not the only time, but it's one of the few times where like her sort of nagging, really, where it's like, he's mad, and she just, admittedly, she kind of just wants things to be the way she wants them to be. It's one of the few times where that ended up saving his life, and it's like, if she hadn't done that, he probably would have, would have just drowned in the tub. So, that was kind of a cool moment for her, and just, kicking the door open. And she even had an interesting moment early on with the psychology teacher, and obviously that's going to lead somewhere. He mentioned how he had a pretty crappy upbringing and stuff like that, and I knew he was going to be the teacher, which was the funniest thing. It was like, it was funny, but it was that weird, embarrassing funny. Like, she's gonna be like so embarrassed when he says like, "Hey, welcome to the class," and then of course she was also in the wrong class. It probably made it like way worse. But that was interesting, and I don't know where they're gonna go with this guy and sort of his upbringing and stuff. But she's obviously interested in getting some help and trying to move past some of the crappier things that have happened to her, which of course leads me straight to Caleb and how he has been officially outed, now that Emma has seen him, which was also a really, really funny scene with her having to take all the plot plans and, drive up to Dylan's little farm. But she's met him, and she didn't say anything in this episode, but I feel like there's just no way that it's not going to come out somehow. Like, she's going to say it to either help Norma or help Norman, and that's just how it's going to end up getting out. It won't be that she wants to do it or wants to out him or anything like that, or, mess up what Dylan has going either. But it's just going to happen. She's going to feel like that's the only way to kind of help him, Norman, or help Norma if she's helping her, kind of get over whatever random issue is going to come up, because it's Bates Motel, so it could be a billion different little things. But I was glad that that happened in this episode, because I knew it wasn't going to be hidden forever. And it was kind of cool that they did it with Emma, because she was pretty much the only person. She didn't really know the character. She knew about him from the last season, but she never did actually get to meet him in person until this episode. So I enjoyed how they kind of played that out. She also looked incredibly hot in the dress that she had, so obviously that's going to be on the minds of a lot of people. That was just obvious. And she's like, oh yeah, sometimes I just get tired of wearing the same old thing. Like, yeah, so I'm just going to be super hot today. Like, that just happens all the time. But it was definitely something. Like, I thought they would have a moment with Norman where he kind of reacted the same way he did when they were at dinner, when she mentioned, like, Peter Pan and Wendy never had sex and he just didn't know what to say. I thought they'd have a moment like that, but I feel like they kind of missed an opportunity just to have like a tiny little scene where he just was immediately just stunned, like, I didn't expect this. And immediately he was in a suit. I thought they were kind of going out on a date when I first saw that happen, and they saw each other and it's like, oh, they're just dressed for work. It was really fancy to me. But I love this episode. It's definitely really cool. We got introduced to two new characters, both of which seem like they're gunning for the sheriff. Both of which are probably involved in the murder case of either one or both of the girls that end up dying in this, in this episode. Well, one dies and one is dead. But I'm incredibly excited to see what's going to happen and what is on this thumb drive. Like, I just can't wait to see it. But of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, I want to know what you guys, I'm sure it hasn't been revealed already just in the episode 4. But whether it has or hasn't, I want to know what you guys, initially thought was on the thumb drive. Like, what is it that's so important that a woman would be killed for it, and that she believes, like, the info on this little tiny thing, it has to be like a gigabyte or something. That little bit of information, what could it be that could actually help Norma protect her family, pretty much? Because I feel like it just has to be something based on the highway. But I want to know what you guys think. And I know this is a pretty long one, especially for an old episode. But it was just a great episode, and I had to touch on like all the points. Hopefully, I didn't actually miss anything. Anything else that did happen in this episode that was pretty good too. But I loved it. I think everyone had like a nice little moment. We actually, another little thing was Dylan and Caleb seemed to really bond in this episode towards the very end. Like, it seems like Dylan is just like, all right, you've helped out so many times now, especially in this episode where he gives him like basically like $1,200 to get the extra lumber or the right type of wood to build his little grow house. I think we had a really interesting moment where it wasn't like so. It was like he seemed like he's officially decided to bond with his father, and as crazy as the relationship is, I think this was like the first real big step where it's like, all right, we can start to bond. So that's, I hope, the final thing. But like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.